Hi, one of the screen dudes here at Primeline Products in Southern California. We're on a pretty warm and muggy day today, and we're here to show you how to measure and install a aluminum security door. And there's just some basic things that you need to do to measure the door, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you the ways that we recommend you measure for a door opening. This is a typical entry door, and to make life a little bit easier, we have these accurate rules that we provide, and this makes it an extremely accurate measurement for the opening. This is a typical door opening. We want to take 3 measurements for the door from the top to the bottom and also the width of the door. So I'm going to start out by measuring. I'm going to put this on the threshold on the bottom. I'm going to plunge this up to the top where we think the door is going to be, and this is where my measurement is going to be, is right here. So I want to do this across, all 3 places of the door. So we go in the middle of the door, we do the same thing. What we're trying to determine what is the shortest distance across the opening. So this looks like this would be 80 7/8 on this particular door. So with that measurement for our height, now we'll do our width measurement. Okay. Use the same thing, we use our accurate rule. We're going to start at the top, go across to the widest opening part of the door, lock in with the locking knob, come down to where we think the door is going to be in the middle here, and then we come down here to the bottom, and there again we're looking for the shortest dimension across the opening, and it looks like it was at the top. So this particular door is 36 3/4, and that's how we measure for the door opening. Okay, now we're going to go over some of the things you just need to be aware of when you're installing an aluminum security door. The aluminum security door installs very much like a screen door, and it has a hinge channel on the side and a bottom adjustment channel on the bottom. But one of the things that's different with an aluminum security door is that we have a fixed handle location. On a screen door, we have the flexibility to move the handle up and down on the door. So some of the things you have to be concerned with when you're determining where the handle placement should be is where the hardware of the security door is going to fall in relationship to the hardware that's on the entry door. And obviously if the entry door is closed, it can't interfere with the hardware on the security door. So this is a model that I made up. It just makes it a little bit easier to visualize when you're out on a job measuring to figure out where are you going to place that handle. So I'm going to show you how I use this model. On this particular door, we have a thumb knob that's on the inside of the house, and what I'm trying to figure out here is where should this handle lever be in relationship to the hardware that's on the door, and also what's going on with the door stop that's on the wood frame. So in this particular case, it looks like we can put this door, and we need to move this lever so that it's in between the deadbolt and the entry knob. And this would be probably an ideal location. So now what we would do is we would measure down from the top of the door to where the lever is, and that's where we want the hole punched in the frame when we order the door. And you notice that the manufacturers always punch in the center, not necessarily where the lever is. So you have to add this dimension back in to tell them exactly where you want it punched. In this case, it's 1 3/4 off of the center is where we'd have this punched. So it's just a matter of holding this in place and then measuring down. You can use your tape measure or whatever you have handy. You can use the accurate rule. And this is right at 41 inches is where we want the lever. So then we'd take the 41 inches and then we'd add the 1 3/4 to get us to the center of the door, and that's what we would tell the manufacturer to punch the hole location to. After we have all our dimensions, the thing that we have to allow for is the 1/8 inch gap for the door around the opening for our takeoff measurements, and also where our handle location is. So just keep that in mind, that when you set your dimensions for where you want the handles placed, that you allow for that 1/8 inch gap at the top. And you always want to measure from the top of the door down for your manufacturers for their handle punch, because the threshold, if you measure from the threshold up, there's always variations in the threshold, so you really want to make sure you're always measuring from top down, because that's always consistent. So now we have our measurements. We went ahead and we'll place our order for the door. And the next step we're going to show you is actually installing the aluminum security door. Okay, here we are. We ordered our door, we have the door, we took it out of the package. And right out of the package there's a couple things you just need to be aware of. It comes with a hinge channel and a bottom adjustment channel. And these are always longer than what you need. They're based at the height of the door, so they're always a field cut for a trim for the door opening. So they're all pretty much a custom fit. So you need to have the flexibility of doing field cuts. And the best way to cut the aluminum extrusions is with a carbide tip blade. And the finer the teeth on a blade, the better. And so now the first step we're going to go to installing this door is actually installing our hinge channel, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. I'm going to use the same accurate rule we used before to measure for the door, and now I'm going to place it on the threshold, and I'm going to go up to where we're going to place the hinge channel, and then I'm going to deduct 1/8 of an inch for allow for the gap at the top of the door to the threshold. So in this case I'm going to cut this at 80 3/4. It's going to be cut for the hinge channel. And so now we'll cut the hinge channel. Okay, so we've cut our hinge channel to the height we need, and now I'm just going to go ahead and place this onto the opening. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I came off of the top of the opening 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to mark, where I want to put my screws. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a screw in the center of each one of the hinges, and that way I can test out the door before I put all of the screws into the hinge channel. So I'm going to start, I'll pilot drill this hole and I'll put a screw in, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the next 2 hinges. Okay, so I've installed the hinge and I've only put 1 screw in each one of the hinges. It's still in a test mode right now. I just want to make sure everything swings correctly before I fasten everything in place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place the door into the hinge channel, and I'm going to align the door into the hinge channel, and then I'll show you the little trick of the trade. I'm going to use some duct tape to hold this temporarily in place instead of screws until I adjust it exactly where I want it. So we'll start at the top. So it's a snug fit, which is good. So now I'm just doing the basic adjustment now to get it into the opening where we think we want to mount it. And if you use a screwdriver or a flat chisel against the bottom to raise it up, it works well. I'm at the top where my hinge channel is. Now I'm going to get my gap on the side. Now for this particular door application, I have a critical point of where the door stop is and where the hardware falls on the inside of the house and the turn knob. So I'm going to actually mount the hardware into the door before I attach the door to the hinge channel, because I want to make sure I have the clearance past the door stop. And what I do to hold this door in place so it doesn't move is duct tape against the hinge channel. So that kind of acts like the screws that we're going to put in when we're all done. Okay, so you just place the tape over the gap of the hinge channel and the door, and that just holds it in place. I'm still going to move it out here a little bit at the bottom. So that will at least hold the door onto the hinge channel temporarily. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the handle hardware on the door. Okay, I've put the hinge channel on. I put the handle on to see where the handle's going to fall in relationship to the hardware on the door. I've got everything aligned. I use my duct tape to kind of hold my door into the hinge channel. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fasten with one screw to hold the hinge channel to the door. Okay, now that I have the one screw in, I'm going to double check, make sure I haven't lost anything of where I want the door to be. I have my clearance that I'm looking for. I'm going to move it out just a little bit from the bottom. Okay, I put the top screw in at the hinge channel at the top, and now I'm going to put one here at the bottom. And this is just a little personal preference. I like to put the screws on the inside of the house so they don't show on the outside. It's personal preference, but it's a little more work because you have to have something to hold the door in the hinge channel as opposed to if you were on the outside of the door. So now I'm going to double check it again to make sure nothing's moved. Looking good. So now what I'm going to do before I finish off the hinge channel screws, I'm going to go back and I'm going to put the hinge screws into the jam where I just have one screw in each one of the hinges now. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in. Okay, so we primarily have the door all ready to install here for the final touches, and one of the things we're going to do is we're going to close this gap that's down here at the bottom where the threshold and the screen door meet, and we're going to do that using this bottom adjustment channel that's going to slide on just very similar to the way that the hinge channel did. And what we're going to do is we're going to measure from the edge of the door just over to the other side of the hinge channel, and that will take care of that gap that's on the inside. And all the things I've done here with the security door at this point is the same for a screen door, the regular swinging screen door. So there's really not much difference other than when we get into the handles are obviously different from a security door from a screen door. But the rest of the installation and what I've done so far is exactly the same as a regular swinging screen door. So now I'll go ahead and I'll measure this and I'll cut this bottom adjustment channel and we'll mount it. Okay, I've gone ahead and I cut my piece to the size that I needed here to butt up against the hinge channel, and so it's flush up even with the end of the door. And now I'm going to go ahead and mount this on here, and that should be just fine with the alignment of the door threshold. So I'm going to double check it again before I put in another screw. What I'm looking for is this gap just right along the bottom here. So we're good. And one last screw here will do it. Check. Okay, we're on to our next step, which is going to be installing the strike plate on the jamb. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to locate the strike onto the door jamb, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of set this in place. I'm going to use the deadbolt to kind of hold the strike plate in place. And what I want to do is I want to get that deadbolt so it's just about in the center of that strike plate, so I know where to mount the strike plate. So in this case I'm just going to mark this is the top and this is the bottom. And right now I'm right up against the doorstop itself, so I think I'm good, right making this flush. So now I'll open this up and we'll mount the strike onto the jam. Okay, so what I've done here, I've already milled away some of the door frame that I wanted to make room for the strike plate. So I located the strike plate on the door jamb, and I put it on here, and I determined where I wanted it to be. Then I also knew that I had to take some material away in order to get the strike plate to go flush against the jamb. And what I did to file that away was just using a rasp file and just by hand, just going along, filing it, double checking it as I went, just to make sure that, you know, I didn't go too far. So now I'm ready to put the strike on, but only after I plow some holes in the jamb for the deadbolt and the latch strike. And to do that, I'm going to show you how I'm going to drill the holes and chisel out this material, because that's the key component to the security doors, with the deadbolt going into the jamb material itself. Okay, here's the latch body for the deadbolt portion that actually is going to go back inside the jamb here. So what we're going to remove the material enough for this to slide back in and secure this in place, and that's what's going to give us the security for the security door. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline this, and then I'll show you the technique that I use for taking this material out and making this box go in there nice and firmly. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little bit of a template for where to place the hole for the box for the deadbolt to go into. And if this is where a strike is, I just outlined the areas that I want to drill my holes and rot out the wood. And the bottom hole of the deadbolt box goes into the bottom of the strike. So by lining up the bottom hole over the area that we want to plunge that deadbolt into the jamb, I'm just going to draw right where I need to cut this box out in the wall. Okay, so from that I'm going to drill out this material and chisel it out. Go. Okay, there's several different ways you can plow a hole into the jamb like this. I'll show you the way that I prefer is using a speed bore bit and drilling possibly 3 holes in here, and then finishing off with chiseling out the material. If you have a better way, I'd like to receive an email on that, because I'm also receptive to that. But for the common tools you have on your truck, this works pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the bottom hole portion to the bottom of where my box is going to be. And do the same thing at the top. The distance of our box is 1.25 inches, so we just need to make sure that our hole is 1.25 inches deep. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to clean this up with the chisel and put the box in. Okay, I've chiseled out, I drilled the 3 holes, I chiseled out the body here for the deadbolt to go into, and there's 2 screws that are back here inside the body of this, and I'm going to anchor it with a couple drywall screws just for the extra security if somebody were trying to break down the door, pull the door open. They're going to have to pull out a lot of material in order to get the door open. So I'm going to go ahead and secure, there's 2 holes, and I'm just going to go ahead and fasten this box in place. This bottom hole is going to be part of the strike hole for the screw holding the strike plate on, but this hole here I can also anchor with a drywall screw. Okay, so now I'm ready to put the strike plate on. So I can put that on, and in this particular case I just need to route out a little bit of material here for the latch and we're good to go. Okay, well here we are. We installed the door. It's finished, it's done, it looks gorgeous, and I put the latch strike on the side on the jamb, mounted everything. I double checked to make sure everything works properly, and it all works fine. This particular homeowner elected not to have a door closer installed, so we didn't install a door closer on this particular